Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Samsaradava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karunya Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gurnanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam Prapta Sakalyana Gurnanavasya Vande Guru Shri Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nritya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Kirtana Romanchakam Pasu Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanama Niramajanado Juktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangam Kridvaiva Tripti Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shiradikama Davayora Para Madhurya Leela Guna Rupa Namna Pratikshana Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Ne kunja yuno rati kelisiddhai Jayali bhir yukte apekshaniya kunja yuno tatrati daksha ativalavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे रुक्तास्तथाव व्यत एव साधुभिः किन्तु प्रवर्ज प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादा भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादं न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायां स्तुवं तस्य यशत्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणरविन्दं वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणरविन्दम् नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसारी गौरा भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसारी गौरा भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसारी गौरा भक्तवृंद Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Nama, Krishna Jadavaya Nama, Hare Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govindaram Shimadhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Shri Radha Nilamadhava Radha Nilamadhava Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Sudarshan Chakra Jaya Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Jai Vishnupada Paramahansa Prabhupada Sutara Shri Maharaj Divine Grace Abhochar Vindu Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Pratishta Bhiviti Samstha Vakachar Vaishnava Siromani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patiti Udhari Ki Jai Shri Rup Sanatana Bhattara Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadguru Swami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Anantakuri Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। जय प्रणाम संकीर्तन एक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद श्रीमन गौरंग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावरनाय अवतार की जय। गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरि नाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जय। जोग धर्म हरि कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। बृहदांग ट्रांसडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गुप्ता राधा कुंद श्याम कुंद गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रज वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय। तिलो श्री श्री राधा नील माधव की जय। श्री श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप चक्र धाम की जय। परम गुरु श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। जगंगा में जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंदी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री मथुरा धारानी की जय। समवेत भक्तविंद की जय। निताय गौरी प्रमानंदे। All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glory to Shri Guru and Shri Gaurang.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladhaladadahine. Hiranyakashipurvakshah. Shilatankanakalaye. Yito Narsimha Parato Narsimha. Yato yato yami tato Narsimha. Bahir Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha. Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapadye. Tava Kara Kamala Varenakam Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare. Jai Jagadish Hare. Jai Jagadish Hare. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare. Jai Jagadish Hare. Jai Jagadish Hare. जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद महाराज निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाहो तेहि अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी। राधा
कृष्ण सेवा पावो तेहि अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी।
ये जो मारा शरण लो तारा वंश पूर्ण हो।
जय तोमार शरण लो तारा वंश पूर्ण। कृपा
करी करो तारे वृंदावन वासी।
तुम्हें कृपा करी कर तारे वृंदावन वासी। मोरा
ही अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास।
मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियाबा
नयने हरि वो सदा जुगल रूप राशि
अमिनायने रिवो सदा जुगल रूप राशि
निवेदन धारो सखी अनुगत करो
निवेदन धार सखीरायन गत कर
सेवा अधिकार दिए करो निज दासी
सेवा यारी कर दिए करो निज दासी
दीन कृष्ण दासे को यही जन्म मोरा हो
दीन कृष्ण दास को ये नमरा श्री
राधा गोविंद प्रेमी
सदा
राजेन वासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा नवासी
नामो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नामो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
यानि कानि जप पानि ब्रह्म हत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
याने कानि सपापानि ब्रह्मचर्यकानि सा तनि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
यानि कानि जप प्राणि ब्रह्म हत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
याने कानि सपापानि ब्रह्मचर्यकानि सा तनि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tagore Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo Shri Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Bai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namah. Vrindaye Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namah. Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always behold beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of carry damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devoting service and make me an ornament. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always sing love Shri Radha and Govind. Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai. Mahatam karotu va Jitadata bhavidadhatulam pato Madvanastastu sa ivana para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Shri Krishna Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prem Pujaya Krishnaya Krishna Prem. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dasta committed for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life for the future birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the primary benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully test the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind. Thinking oneself Lord and strolling in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of a sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causes, devotion, service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet some or other I'm falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms of the yellow streets. O my Lord, or will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy names? Or will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if sunders miraculously by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, but he always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri 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 Krishna Ki. The 18 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided, they are as follows. 1. Blasphemy of body, to dedicate a life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the name of the Lord, Shiva of the man to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of Vedic version. 5. Consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to the imagination. 6. To give some interpretation of the name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities and strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as spiritual activity karma kanda. 9. To strike the fearless person of the glories of the holy name. 10. Not have complete faith in chanting of the holy names, and maintain material attachments, even of understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense being tangible chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against stand offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devoted to the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Vancha Prataparamaccha Kripa Sindhi Vacha Kripanam Paramekyo Vaishnava Devi Vedanta Kuti Vaishnavim Ki.
Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmada Shayato Naviyat Itaratas Charte Svavigya Swarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisago Misha Damnas Vena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universe. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature.
appear factual, although they are unreal.
They are factual, although they are unreal.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
eternal existence in transcendental,
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is for representation of material world.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him for he is the absolute
Dharma pujita kaitravocha,
Dharma Pujita Kaita.
paramo nimatsanam satam,
Prabhu, you say it.
vedyam vastavam atra vastu,
Vedam Vastavam Vastavam.
shivadam tapa trayon mulanam,
Shivadam Tapo.
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite,
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni.
kim va purir ishwaraha,
Kim va paridishvaraha.
sadyor hidi avuridyate tra,
Sadyorudhya Varidyati.
kriti bihi sususubhistakshana.
Prithvi Shishubhistakana.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
Completely rejecting all religious activities.
This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truths,
This Bhagavad Puran propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, the reality distinguished from illusion.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such a truth uproots the threefold
This
misery.
beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva
is sufficient in itself for God realization.
for God's realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
When attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of
by
knowledge,
this culture of
the
knowledge,
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam,
Nigama kalpataro galitam
sukamukad amrita dravya samyutam,
Sukamukad
pibata bhagavatam rasam malayam,
Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam.
muhur aho raska bhuvibhavaka.
Purasika Bhuviva.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad
O
Bhagavatam,
expert and thoughtful man, relish
the mature fruit of the desired two Vedic literatures.
The mature fruit is a tree of Vedic.
It emanated from the lips of C. Sukadeva
It
Goswami.
emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadeva.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore this fruit becomes more.
Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
Although its nectarian juice was all relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna,
Shambhatam Swakata
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Punya Shravana
Hiryantak Stohi Bhadrani,
Vidyantakusya
Vidonati Suhitsatam.
Bhavanati Surisa.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from Vedic
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad
is itself righteous activity.
It is self-righteous.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for whom hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone,
acts as a best wishing friend,
acts as the best wishing
and
friend,
purifies the devotee who constantly engaged in hearing of him.
and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
Nasta presu abhajesu,
Nasta Prayesho Bhagavati
nityam bhagavata sevaya,
Nityam Bhagavata Seva
bhagavati uttamasloke,
Bhagavati Uttamasloke
bhaktir bhavati naistaki.
Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, the devotee naturally develops dharma and transcendence.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
He hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavad
and from the devotees,
devotee.
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
He becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastamo bhava,
Tarajastamo bhava
kamalobhadayaschaye,
kamalobhadayascha
cheta etaranabhidam,
itaranabhi
stitvam sattve prasidati.
tam sarve prasidi.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotion,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes free from the modes of passion
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
and thus material lust and avarice.
Evam prasana manaso,
Evam prasannama
bhagavad bhakti yogataha,
bhagavad bhakti yoga
bhagavad tattva vijnanam,
bhagavad tattva
mukta sangasya jayate.
mukta sangasya.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are
the
wiped,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure
the
goodness,
candidate remains steady in position,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
comes to life with devotion,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the science of God.
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
Vidyate vidya
chidyante sarvasamsaya,
Vidyante sarvasam
siyante jasya karmani,
Vidyante chasakarma
justa evat manishware.
Tadvasmani.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the heart not of material affection,
Thus the Bhakti Yoga severs the heart of material
and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram,
and enables one to come at once to the stage of samshama
understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth Personality of Godhead.
understanding the supreme absolute truth of God.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee Krishna consciousness
Can one understand the science of Krishna?
Can one understand the science of Krishna?
Shishi Guruvastaka prayers. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it.
The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as the cloud pours water before the fire to extinguish it.
So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the Lord of such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities.
Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments.
Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing music.
The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya.
Because he's relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind.
Because he's relishing the mellows of pure devotion.
Sometimes his hair stands on end.
Sometimes his hair stands on end.
He feels quivering in his body.
He feels quivering in his body.
And tears flow from his eyes like waves.
Tears flow from his eyes like
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such
The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna.
The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha.
He also engages his disciples in such worship.
He also engages his disciples in such worship.
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and
clean their temple,
clean the
and perform other similar worship of the Lord.
and perform other similar worship.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such.
The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food.
The spiritual master always offering Krishna for kinds of
Analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked.
analyze that which is in the truth.
When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad
The
Prasada,
spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating
he is satisfied.
He is satisfied.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual
I
master.
offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava,
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal
and their
pastimes
qualities, names, and
and
forms.
their qualities, form,
The
name.
spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
The spiritual master aspires to relish these with
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a
The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan.
The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopi who in different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan.
I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my most humble obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual.
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant of the Lord.
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all.
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is the bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna.
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus to such a spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advance.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise.
At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master.
At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance to the Lotus feet of my spiritual master.
Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda. I'm sorry. Chintamani Prakasatma Sukalpa Vriksha. I'm sorry. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Nadi Radhi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam.
Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana
Chintamani Prakasatma Sukalpa Vriksha.
Chintamani Pakara Sapna Sukalpa
Lakshavrite Susurabhira Vipaliyantam.
Chavite Shishurabhira Vipalayam
Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam.
Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Venam Gwananta Ravinda Dalayataksham. Bharavatam Samasitam. Bharavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam.
Param Vatam Samasitam Buddha Sundar
Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesha Sobham.
Kandar Pakurti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobha
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Vindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Alola Chandrakala Sadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranay Keli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribangalalitam Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Bhanti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govinda Mari Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Mari Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Munipungavaanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasim Yavicintya Tatve Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayatam Jagadanda Kotim Yes Chakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta Antarasta Paramanu Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavitadiyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusaha Suktaryameva Nikama Pratitaistu Suktaryameva Nikama Pratitaistu Vanti Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis Tabirya Eva Tabirya Eva Nijarupataya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilat Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksadeva Hidesu Vilokayanti Shamasundaram Yam Shamasundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Amenatistan Nanavatara Makarod Bhuvane Sukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavad Paramaha Spumamyo Govinda Mari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Paramaha Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagaranda Koti Koti Swaseshu Vasudadi Vibhuti Bhinam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Ashesha Bhutam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Jayagun Yatad Vishaya Veda Vitaya Manam Sattvam Valambi Parasattvam Visuddha Sattvam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasu Ya Praninam Pratifulam Smaratam Upetya Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajas Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindamati Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Golokanamni Nijadamni Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesa Haridamasa Devi Mahesa Haridamasa Tesu Tesu Tete Prabhavani Jaya Tete Prabhavani Jaya Vitascha Govindamati Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shasti Stati Pralaya Sadhana Saktireka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Apiyasya Chichesta Tesa Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Shiram Yata Dadai Vikara Visesa Yoga. Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Hetaho. Yasambhutam Apitata Samapaiti Karya. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Dipachadeva Hita Santanam Abhyapetya. Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samanu Dharma. Yastadrigeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga. Nidram Ananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupaha. Adhara Shaktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yasyaika Nishvasitakala Matavalam Ya. Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadanda Nataha. Vishwar Mahan Sahi Yasya Kalabhiseso. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Basman Yatasma Sakalesu Nijesu Tejaha. Sriyam Kiyat Prakatiyat Apitadvadatra. Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidai Kumbha. Dvandve Pranama Samaye Sikadadira. Dvandve Pranama Samaye Sab Ganadi Rajaha. Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Maruti Sascha. Kalastatatma Manasiti. Kalastatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani. Yasmad Bhavanti Visanti Yamcha. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakalagrahanam. Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Tejaha. Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kalachakru. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayastapamsi. Brahma Dikita Patagava Deyascha Jivaha. Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yastrinda Gopam Avdavendra Mahoswakarma. Bandhanu Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti. Karmani Nidahati Kintu Chabakti Bhajan. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Biti. Vatsalya Moha Guru Gora Vasevya. Vatsalya Moha Guru Gora Vasevya Bhava Hai. Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamapurete. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo. Druma Bhumish Chintamani Ganamayi Toyam Amritam. Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivamsi Priyasaki. Chidanandam Jyoti Param Atitad Aswadyam Apicha. Sayatra Shiradi Bihi Shravati Surabi Vyascha Sumahan. Mime Sardakyu Vavajati Nahiyatrapi Samaya. Bhaje Svita Dvipam Tamaham Iha Golokamitiyam. Vidantaste Santakshiti Viralachara Katipaye. Shishupanashadi Ki Jai Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachate Purnasya Purnam Arasya Ishavaishyam idam sarvam jakinja jagatyam jagatina taktena bunjitaha magridaha kashasviddanam kurvani vaha karmani jajiva chekchatam samaha evam tvayi nanyatitusti karma lipite nare Asurya namate loka andena tamasafritaha tam stetit pratyabhikachanti yekechat mahano janaha Anijadikam manaso javyo nena devam apavam pavam asata davatu nyani teti sistat nas tasminapumata visvadadati Manaso javyo nena devam apavam pavam asata davatu nyani teti sistat tasminapumata Tadi jati tane jati tadure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasya syabhayataha tadu sarvasya Yastu sarvani bhutani atmani evanupasati sarvabhute suchatmanam tatunam vijigupsate Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmeva bud vijanataha tatrako mahakaha sukha ekatvam anupasyataha Saprayagachukam akayam avinam asnaviram sudam apapavidam kavir manisi paribhu swayambhu yatatat yatrudam yadadas chasvatipyaha samabhyaha Andam tamaha pravisanti ye vidyam upasyate tato bhuya viteta moya yuvidyam rataha
Andam tasma pravisanti ye vidyam upapsate tato bhuya ivateta moya uvidyam rataha
Anyade bhur vidyaya anyadahur vidyaya iti sushruma dhiranam yenastad vichachakshire
Anyade bhur vidyaya anyarahur avidyaya iti sushrumadhiranam yenastad vichachakshire
vidyam cha yasyastad virubhayam saha vidyaya miritum tirpa vidyayam ritamasnute
vidyam cha yastad evaduyap saha avidyayam ritum tirpa vidyamritam asnire
Antam tamaha pravisanti ye sambhutim upasyate tato bhuya vitetomo ya yusambhutam rataha
Andam tama pravisanti ye sambhutim upapsate tato bhuya ivateta ya sambhutyam rataha
Anyadevahu sambhavat anyadahura sambhavat iti susrumadhiranam yenastad vichachakshire Sambhutim cha vinasam cha yastad vidubhayam Sambhutim cha vinasam cha yastad vidubhayam saha vinasena miritum tirtva sambhutam ritamasnute
Samudrim cha vinasam cha yastad vidayuya saha vinasena mrityum ritva sambhutyam ritam asnute
Hiranmayana patrena satyasya pitam mukam tatpam pusam apavinu satyadharma yadristaye
Idanmane yatpatena satyasya pitam mukham tatvam pusham avavindum satyam dharmasya drishtaya
Usaneka seyamasuya prajapatya vyuha rasmin samahatejo yatte rupam kalyanatamam tate pusyami yosavaso purushaha sohamasmi
Pustane kache yamasuriya prajapatya diyam arasme samvatejo yate rupam kalyanatamam tate pasyami yosam astu
Vayuranilam amritam atidam basmantam sariram om krato smara kritam smara krato smara kritam smara
Vayuranilam amritam adedam vaspantam susiram umkratu smara kito smara kratu smara kita smara
Om Agni Naya Supatara Yasman Vishwani Deva Vanuyani Vayunani Vidvan Yod Ajmas Juhuranamino Buyistam Te Nama Uktim Vidama Om Tat Sat
Yasya supanaraye asmat vasandeva vayunani devyam yo yotyasmayum juharanam ino buyitam te nama bhutam vidana
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 7. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, text number 11. Satre mamasa Bhagavan hayashira sato
Bhagavan Aya Shira Satu
Sakshat Sayagya Purushas Tapaniya Varna
Sakya Yajagya Purusha Tapani Shivana
Chando Mayo Maka Mayo Kila Divatma
Chando Mayo Kamayuki La Divatamapma
Vacho Babuvur Usati Svasato Syanasta.
Vacho Babu Virusita Swasatu Sanasta.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord appeared as the Hayagriva incarnation in a sacrifice performed by me, Brahma. He is the personified sacrifices, and the hue of his body is golden. He is the personified Vedas as well, and the supersoul of all demigods. When he breathed, all the sweet sounds of the Vedic hymns came out of his nostrils. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. The Vedic hymns are generally meant for sacrifices performed by fruitive workers who also want to satisfy the demigods to achieve their fruitive results. But the Lord is the personified sacrifices and personified Vedic hymns. Therefore, one who is directly a devotee of the Lord is a person who has automatically both served the purposes of sacrifices and pleased the demigods. The devotees of the Lord may not perform any sacrifice or may not please the demigods as per Vedic injunctions, and still the devotees are on a higher level than the fruitive workers or the worshippers of different demigods. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Lord appeared as the Hayagriva incarnation in a sacrifice performed by me, Brahma. He is the personified sacrifices, and the hue of his body is golden. He is the personified Vedas as well, and the supersoul of all demigods. When he breathed, all the sweet sounds of the Vedic hymns came out of his nostrils. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, these amazing appearance of Hayagriva, incarnation of the Lord, is very significant for devotees, because when we see such an amazing incarnation and hear about him, then we understand the greatness of the Lord and how a mundane person cannot understand anything about Krishna, because they can't imagine such a personality has such powers and such varieties of expansions that are absolutely himself. So this is incomprehensible. And therefore, the Mayavadis, they try and cancel all the things that are, let's say, miraculous, to diminish the stature of the Lord, and they're trying to make the Lord an ordinary person like us. That's why they're the worst of the worst blasphemers of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So this is explained a little more in depth in two verses, 724 and 911 in Bhagavad Gita. 724 says, Avaktam vyaktim manyate, avaktam vaktam apanam manyate mam abudaya param bhavam jananto mamaviyam anutamam. Avyaktam vyaktim apanam. So it says, unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. So who are these unintelligent men who do not know Krishna perfectly. Well, he's talking about the Mayavadis and the devotees of the demigods, although they're a little bit better than the Mayavadis, but the Mayavadis are the worst of the worst. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, those who are worshippers of demigods have been described as less intelligent persons. And here the impersonalists are similarly described. Lord Krishna, in his personal form, is here speaking before Arjuna, and still, due to ignorance, impersonalists argue that the Supreme Lord ultimately has no form. Yamunacharya, a great devotee of the Lord in the disciplic succession of Ramanujacharya, has written a very appropriate verse in this connection. He says, Tam Shilo Rupa Charitai Parama Prakristai. My dear Lord, devotees like Vyasadeva and Narada know you to be the personality of Godhead. By understanding different Vedic literatures, one can come to know your characteristics, your form, and your activities. And one can thus understand that you are the supreme personality of Godhead. But those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, the demons, the non-devotees, cannot understand you. They are unable to understand you. However, expert such non-devotees may be in discussing Vedanta and the Upanishads and other Vedic literatures. It's not possible for them to understand the personality of Godhead. This is in the Shrotra Ratna, verse number 12 of Yamunacharya. So let's try and understand the incredible amount of cancellation the Mayavadis do. They are canceling Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to the modes of material nature and the material world, and who is the source of all incarnations and all first of all expansions, absolute expansions, and then all incarnations. So they're canceling Krishna, they're canceling Balaram, they're canceling the first Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, and Sankar's son, Pradyumna and Aniruddha. They're canceling, and then Narayana, and then they're canceling the second Chaturvyuha, which is Vasudeva, Sankar's son, Pradyumna and Aniruddha. Then they're canceling the Vishnu incarnations, which are Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Shirodakshaya Vishnu. Then they're canceling all the avatars. There's Manvantara avatar, there's Purusha avatar, there's Guna avatar, there's Leela avatar, there's the Purusha, did I say Purusha avatar? And then there's the Shaktavish avatars. They're canceling all that, right? And they say, in the most insulting thing, that when there's an appearance of Krishna, he has a material body just like you and me. And that the absolute truth is not a person. It is an energy or a force that's impersonal. Look at all they've done. They've canceled everything, right? And they say that all the incarnations also are just mundane persons, and that personality doesn't exist. It's an illusion. They cancel the whole material world with all the jivas and the material elements and all the incarnations that appear in the material world. They've canceled everything, and they end up with this impersonal light called Brahmajyoti. But there's so much, in other words, they're canceling almost all of the Bhagavad Gita, say, and everything Krishna says. And they do this by giving speculative interpretations and theories. So it's unbelievable what they do. And unless we we understand, we might give them a little bit of credit. They have no credit at all. They have discredit. So it says in the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the personality of Godhead cannot be understood simply by study of the Vedanta literature. Only by the mercy of the Supreme Lord can the personality of the Supreme be known. No, so that is a Vedic verse. We're going to read that in a minute. Therefore, in this verse, it is clearly stated that not only are the worshippers of the demigods less intelligent, but those non-devotees who are engaged in Vedanta and speculation on Vedic literature without any tinge of true Krishna consciousness are also less intelligent, and for them it is not possible to understand God's personal nature. Why? Because they're blasphemers. They not only ignore Krishna, they blaspheme him. So this is what's not understood. They're the worst sinners because they're directly attacking the Lord with blasphemous nonsense. Persons who are under the impression that the Absolute Truth is impersonal are described as abudaya, which means those who do not know the ultimate feature of the Absolute Truth. In the Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated that the supreme realization begins from the impersonal Brahman and then rises to the localized Supersoul, but the ultimate word in the Absolute Truth is the personality of Godhead. Yeah. So that is Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto and second chapter. Let's read that verse. Verse number Vedanti Tattvavidas Tattvam Yajganam Advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Sabdite. So, learned transcendentalists who know the Absolute Truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. So, there it is. That Prabhupada is only speaking shastrically, right? Every statement is making shastrically can be backed up. So, in the purport, Prabhupada says the Absolute Truth is both subject and object. And there is no qualitative difference between there. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are qualitatively one and the same. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by the students of the Upanishads, as localized Paramatma by the Hiranyagarbhas or the yogis, and as Bhagavan by the devotees. In other words, Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead, is the last word of the Absolute Truth. Paramatma is the partial representation of the personality of Godhead, and impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence of the personality of Godhead, as the sun's rays are to the sun god. Less intelligent students of either of the above schools sometimes argue in favor of their own respective realization, but those who are perfect seers of the Absolute Truth know well that the above three features of the one Absolute Truth are different perspective views seen from different angles of vision. As it is explained in the first sloka of the first chapter of the Bhagavatam, the Supreme Truth is self-sufficient, cognizant, and free from the illusion of relativity. A very important point. If you ever hear the scientists and philosophers talk, they talk about relativity, that everything is relative in the material world, and there are no absolutes. That's their point. So that is nonsense. That's Mayavad philosophy. It's called the illusion of relativity. In the relative world, the knower is different from the known, but in the Absolute Truth, both the knower and the known are one and the same. In other words, Krishna is the origin of everything, spiritual and material, and he is everything, spiritual and material, because it's all made from his own energies. So he is the subject and the object. He's the origin, and he is he's expanded in, not only everything is made of his energy, but he's present in his energy as the super soul, and his whole energy and his different energies are situated on the Brahma Jyoti, which is his energy also. So we see, and then he encompasses everything in his Virat Rupa form. So therefore he is the subject and the object. Whereas the Mayavadis say, no, that's all nonsense. There's only, there's no subject and there's no object. There's just the Brahman. They cancel everything. They cancel the material world. They say, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. The material world doesn't really exist. It's an illusion. And it has no locus standi, as they say in technical words, using Latin words. It has no existence, right? So we can see how vicious they are. And then it says, in the relative world, the knower is different from the known, but in the absolute truth, both the knower and the known are one and the same thing. In the relative world, the knower is the living spirit or superior energy, whereas the known is inert matter or inferior energy. Therefore, there is a duality of inferior and superior energy, whereas in the absolute realm, both the knower and the known are of the same superior energy. There are three kinds of energies of the supreme energetic. There is no difference between the energy and the energetic, but there is a difference of quality of energies. The absolute realm and the living entities are of the same superior energy, but the material world is inferior energy. The living being in contact with the inferior energy is illusioned, thinking he belongs to the inferior energy. Therefore, there is the sense of relativity in the material world. In the absolute, there is no such sense of difference between the knower and the known, and therefore everything is absolute. So it takes time to understand purports like this. And I can't say, the first time I read it, I can't say I understood it. The second time I read it, I can't say I understand it. And this is another time I'm reading it, and I understand it a little bit more, but I can't say I perfectly understand it, right? Because we're talking about things that are simultaneously and inconceivably one and different. So how can we say, I understand this perfectly, right? Because as jivas, we are limited to a certain extent. But we can get a general idea. So the general idea is that there seems to be relativity in the material world because we become influenced by Maya. But actually in the spiritual world, and that includes the material world, because the material world is also spiritual, it's energy coming from Krishna, there's no such relativity. Relativity means one thing depends on something else. And both things are different. But in the absolute world, everything is Krishna, and everything is emanating from Krishna. Janma dasayata, everything coming from the Lord. So everything is the Lord at the same time. Now this is incomprehensible for people. Does that sound like Mayavad philosophy? No, because they're saying there's no such thing as a material world. It's an illusion. There's no such thing as Krishna in the spiritual world. That's another illusion. There's just a Brahman. So therefore, everything for them is relative. But for the devotees, everything is absolute. Because, therefore, there is a duality of inferior and superior energy, whereas in the absolute realm, both the knower and the known are the same superior energy. There are three kinds of energies of the supreme energetic, meaning Krishna. There is no difference. There's internal energy, there's external energy, and there's the marginal energy. There's no difference between the energy and the energetic, but there is a difference of quality of energies. So there's qualitative oneness and quantitative difference. And also, qualitative oneness means that our soul is eternal and Krishna is eternal. But we are not, let's say, equal to Krishna. We are infinitely small and he's infinitely great. Our capacity of knowledge is limited. His is unlimited. And our bliss in the material world is limited. In the spiritual world, we can experience also unlimited bliss. So there are certain things in which we are equal to Krishna, and other things in which we can never be equal to Krishna. So we're therefore qualitatively one, quantitatively different. Here it says, there is no difference between the energy and the energetic, but there is a difference of quality of energies. So the one difference in the quality of energies is that the jiva is limited. It's not, his knowledge is going to be limited. His basically, knowledge is limited. You can never really understand Krishna completely because Krishna is always expanding. And then the material energy, well, it sometimes manifests, sometimes unmanifest, whereas the spiritual energy is always, and in the spiritual world is always manifest. So there's a little bit difference in the quality of the material energy, although it's spiritual and it's never annihilated, but sometimes it's manifest, sometimes it's not manifest. So therefore it says, but there is a difference of quality of energies. The absolute realm and the living entities are the same superior energy, but the material world is inferior energy. The living being in contact with the inferior energy is illusioned, thinking he belongs to the inferior energy. Therefore, there is the sense of relativity in the material world. Well, it's because of misconception. Right? If we think we belong to the material energy, but in reality we don't. We're part of Krishna's superior energy. But thinking like that, there's relativity. Just like, for example, a person is convinced that they don't have any money because let's say they changed their pants, and the new pants that they had on had no money in the pockets. So they went to put their hand in the pocket, and there's nothing there. They open the pockets, there's nothing there. So they think they have no money. But actually they have some money. It's in another pair of pants that they forgot. See? So in the same way, when someone takes birth in the material world, first of all, their soul is covered by matter, the material body. So they identify themselves with the body and not with the soul. So therefore, from that point on, everything is relative for them. It's not, there's no absolute, because they're ignorant of their eternal soul, and they're ignorant of the super soul, who's also in their body as Paramatma. So they only see matter. So matter is something that is relative. It's not absolute. It depends on Krishna. But because the person doesn't accept the existence of Krishna, then there's only relativity in their mind. This thing is relative to that thing, which is relative to that thing. So that's what you call a unending spiral of relativity. And therefore there's nothing absolute in the minds of such materialistic people. So the living being in contact with the inferior energy is illusioned, thinking it belongs to the inferior energy. Therefore there is the sense of relativity in the material world. In the absolute, there is no such sense of difference between the knower and the known, and therefore everything there is absolute. So the knower and the known. So the knower is Krishna, and the known is the living entity, but the living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. So therefore, there's no therefore the living entity is qualitatively one, quantitatively different. So there's oneness there. There's no, let's say, stark difference. Only in the fact that the living entity is infinitesimally small and the Lord is infinitely great, but they're qualitatively one. Okay, so, but in the material world, someone says, "Well, I'm a white American," and another person says, "I'm a black American." So they are basing everything on their body, and therefore they think that they're completely different, right? But actually, their souls are not different, right? In the sense that they both belong to Krishna and they're both eternal. So we see by how identifying with matter, everything becomes bifurcated or different, and people glorify the difference and forget about the similarities. Right? So that means there's imperfect knowledge. Okay, so then in this purport it says, persons who are under the impression that the Absolute Truth is impersonal are described as abudaya, which means those who do not know the ultimate feature of the Absolute Truth. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the supreme realization begins from the impersonal Brahman and then rises to the localized Supersoul, but the ultimate word in the Absolute Truth is the personality of Godhead. Modern impersonalists are still less intelligent, for they do not even follow their great predecessor, Sankaracharya, who has specifically stated that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Impersonalists, therefore, not knowing the supreme truth, think Krishna to be only the son of Devaki and Vasudeva, or a prince, or a powerful living entity. This is also condemned in the Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Abhajanti mam mudha manasim tanam asritam. Only the fools regard me as an ordinary person. So that's the Mayavadis. The fact is that no one can understand Krishna without rendering devotional service and without developing Krishna consciousness. The Bhagavatam 10:14-29 confirms this. Atapi te deva padam bhuja dvaya. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. One cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, or his form, quality, or name simply by mental speculation or by discussing Vedic literature. One must understand him by devotional service. When one is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, beginning by chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, then only can one understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Non-devotee impersonalists think that Krishna has a body made of this material nature and that all his activities, his form, and everything are Maya. These impersonalists are known as Mayavadis. They do not know the ultimate truth. So there Prabhupada is explaining very clearly the dilemma of the Mayavadis, who are completely in illusion about who God is and who they are. So then in 9:11, it also says, fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. So this is a description of the Mayavadis. Okay, so we see how thoroughly Prabhupada is defeating the Mayavad philosophy. If you read the purport to 9:11 and the purport to 7:24 and many other purports, he's attacking the lack of knowledge, or he's showcasing the lack of knowledge of the Mayavadis, who have canceled everything except this Brahmajyoti. Now, why is it that they can't understand? Because their goal is the Brahmajyoti, but the Brahmajyoti is the only place where there's no possibility of devotional service, at least for the Mayavadis. And therefore, they are condemned to take birth over and over again in the material world, because they reject knowledge of Krishna. And what is Bhagavad Gita? It's giving knowledge of Krishna. And they are vicious because they'll misinterpret all the verses of Bhagavad Gita to cancel Krishna. Now you see to what extreme levels of nonsense they are going to. And that's why they're the worst blasphemers of Krishna. Okay, so now this Hayagriva is a very interesting incarnation of the Lord. And it says in the 7th canto, 9th chapter, 37th verse, 7-9-37. My dear Lord, when you appeared as Hayagriva, with the head of a horse, you killed 2 demons, known as Madhu and Kaitava, who were full of the modes of passion and ignorance. Then you delivered the Vedic knowledge to Lord Brahma. For this reason, all the great saints accept your forms as transcendental, untinged by material qualities. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his transcendental form is always ready to give protection to his devotees. As mentioned herein, the Lord, in the form of Hayagriva, killed 2 demons named Madhu and Kaitava when they attacked Lord Brahma. Modern demons think that there was no life in the beginning of creation. But from Srimad Bhagavatam we understand that the first living creature created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead was Lord Brahma, who is full of Vedic understanding. Unfortunately, those entrusted with distributing Vedic knowledge, such as the devotees engaged in spreading Krishna consciousness, may sometimes be attacked by demons. But they must rest assured that demoniac attacks will not be able to harm them, for the Lord is always prepared to give them protection. The Vedas provide the knowledge by which we can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedaischa sarvir aham eva vedya. Bhagavad Gita 15:15. The devotees of the Lord are always ready to spread knowledge by which one may understand the Lord through Krishna consciousness. But the demons, being unable to understand the Supreme Lord, are full of ignorance and passion. Thus the Lord, whose form is transcendental, is always ready to kill the demons. By culturing the mode of goodness, one can understand the position of the transcendental Lord and how the Lord is always prepared to remove all obstacles on the path of understanding him. In summary, whenever the Lord incarnates, he appears in his original transcendental form, as the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 4:7, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam shijam yaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. It is simply foolish to think of the Lord as being originally impersonal, but accepting a material body when he appears as a personal incarnation. Whenever the Lord appears, he appears in his original transcendental form, which is spiritual and blissful. But unintelligent men, such as the Mayavadis, cannot understand the transcendental form of the Lord, and therefore the Lord chastises them by saying, Abhijanati mam mudha manasim tanam asritam. Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Fools deride me when I descend in a human form. Whenever the Lord appears, whether as a fish, a tortoise, a hog, or any other form, one should understand that he maintains his transcendental position, and that his only business is stated here is, as stated here, is hatva, to kill the demons. The Lord appears in order to protect the devotees and kill the demons. Paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya jaduskritam. Bhagavad Gita 4.8. Since the demons are always ready to oppose Vedic civilization, they are sure to be killed by the transcendental form of the Lord. So we have to have full faith in this principle, that the Lord will Kontiya pratijani hinami bhakta pranashyati. The Lord promises to protect his devotee. Therefore, the devotee can engage in devotional service without fear and anxiety. Now, many people today in the United States have what's called uh, post-traumatic syndrome. That is, something has happened in their life, and the rest of their life they're suffering because of it. They have difficulty sleeping, they have fear, they have anxiety, and their mind is disturbed. Right? Now, why is this? It's because they don't have real tangible knowledge of Krishna. And they don't know that Krishna is guaranteeing to protect them. And that their future is certain. It's not uncertain, it's certain. That if they chant Hare Krishna sincerely, they're going to go back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada has promised this. He said, he tells his devotees often, just chant Hare Krishna and you'll go back to Godhead. Chant sincerely without committing offenses and you'll go back to Godhead. So, do we believe it? That's the problem. Well, there are many people, even including devotees, that don't really believe it. I mean, they can mimic it, but they don't really believe it. And therefore, they have mental problems. They have panic attacks. They have doubts. They're easily derailed from the pure path of Krishna consciousness by all kinds of material considerations based on fear and anxiety. So it says, in this way, my Lord, you appear in various incarnations as a human being, an animal, a great saint, a demigod, a fish, or a tortoise, thus maintaining the entire creation in different planetary systems and killing the demoniac principles. According to the age, O my Lord, you protect the principles of religion. In the age of Kali, however, you do not assert yourself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore you are known as Tri Yuga, or the Lord who appears in 3 yugas. In other words, basically this verse is talking about Lord Chaitanya, who doesn't say he's God. He says that he is the servant of God. As the Lord appeared just to maintain Lord Brahma from the attack of Madhu and Kaitava, he also appeared to protect the great devotee Prahlad Maharaj. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya appeared in order to protect the fallen souls of Kali Yuga. There are 4 yugas or millenniums: Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. In all the yagyas, in all the yagyas, but Kali Yuga. In all the yugas, except for Kali Yuga, the Lord appears in various incarnations and asserts himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But although Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appears in Kali Yuga, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he never asserted himself as such. On the contrary, whenever Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was addressed as being as good as Krishna, he blocked his ears with his hands, denying his identity with Krishna, because he was playing the part of a devotee. Lord Chaitanya knew that in Kali Yuga there would be many bogus incarnations pretending to be God, and therefore he avoided asserting himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, in many Vedic literatures, especially in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.32. Krishna Varanyam Trisak Krishna Sangapangdastu Parsadam Yajnai Sankirtana Parir Yajanti Mam Sumedasaha. In Kali Yuga, the intelligent men worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was always accompanied by his associates such as Nityananda, Advaita, Gadadhara, and Shivasas. The entire Krishna consciousness movement is based on the principles of the Sri Sankirtan movement inaugurated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, one who tries to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the medium of the Sankirtan movement knows everything perfectly. He is Sumedas, a person with substantial intelligence. So here we see the glorification of Lord Chaitanya and the Sankirtan movement. And this is real protection. When look how Krishna protected Haridas Thakur. He was supposed to be killed by being beaten in 21 different marketplaces by the Muslim leader, and he survived because the Lord protected him. And the next verse says, "My dear Lord of the Vaikuntha planets, where there is no anxiety, my mind is extremely sinful and lusty, being sometimes so-called happy and sometimes so-called distressed. My mind is full of lamentation and fear, and it always seeks more and more money. Thus, it has become most polluted and is never satisfied in topics concerning you." In other words, never satisfied by hearing Krishna Katha. Right? When they want to hear money Katha and sense gratification Katha. Thus, it has become most polluted and is never satisfied in topics concerning you. Again, it says that because there's so much involved with making money and having sense gratification, they're not interested in Krishna. I am therefore most fallen and poor. In such a status of life, how shall I be able to discuss your activities? Wow, amazing verse. And this is Prahlad Maharaj speaking. He represents himself as a common man, although he actually has nothing to do with this material world. Prahlada is always situated in the Vaikuntha planets of the spiritual world. But on behalf of the fallen souls, he asks how, when his mind is always disturbed by material things, he can discuss the transcendental position of the Lord. Exactly right. If my mind is always focused on making money and using the money for sense gratification, I have no interest in Krishna consciousness. I don't want to come to the classes and hear classes. It's boring and has no affinity for my values. My values are sense gratification and money. So how can I be interested in hearing about Krishna? You see. So the mind is always disturbed by material things. He can discuss. But on behalf of the fallen souls, he asks how. This is Prahlad Maharaj. How, when his mind is always disturbed by material things, he can discuss the transcendental position of the Lord. The mind becomes sinful because we are always engaged in sinful activities. Anything not connected with Krishna consciousness should be understood to be sinful. Indeed, Krishna demands in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharmam parityaja mamekam saranam vraja aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshisyami ma sucha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. As soon as one surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna immediately relieves one of the reactions of sinful activities. Therefore, one who is not surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord should be understood to be sinful, foolish, degraded among men, and bereft of all real knowledge because of atheistic propensities. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:15. Namam duskritina buddha prapadyante naradama maya pratagyanam asram bhavamasrita. These are 4 types of people that never come to Krishna. Therefore, especially in this age of Kali, the mind must be cleansed, and this is possible only by the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Cheta Darpana Marjanam, Chaitanya Charitamrita Anta 20.12. In this age, the process of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the only method by which to cleanse the sinful mind. When the mind is completely cleansed of all sinful reactions, one can then understand his duty in the human form of life. The Krishna consciousness movement is meant to educate sinful men so that they may become pious simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyata. Adi Lila 17:21. To cleanse the heart so that one may become sober and wise in this age of Kali, there's no value to any method other than the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Prahlad Maharaj has confirmed this process in previous verses. Twadvirya Gayana Mahamrita Magnachita. Prahlada further confirms that if one's mind is always absorbed in thought of Krishna, that very qualification will purify one and keep one purified always. To understand the Lord and his activities, one must free his mind from all contamination of the material world, and this one can achieve by simply chanting the Lord's holy name. Thus, one becomes free from all material bondage. So here, the whole focus is on chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari. And regularly hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, taking prasadam, associating with devotees, and engaging in devotional service, then one can cleanse the heart so that one can become sober and wise in the age of Kali. And there's no value, Prabhupada says, to any other method other than the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Wow. Very, very strong statements by Prabhupada, and rightfully so. Okay, so we'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
Just a little comment on what you mentioned earlier on, but people being different externally in terms of body, you know.
Yes.
It's funny. I will tell people, like, look, if you would say that God created all beings equal, what the equality, on which platform are we equal? Not in terms of the body, because we're not equal in terms of body. Some they're female, some they're poor, some rich, some they're ugly, some different colors. So the equality means on the spiritual platform.
Yes.
So we have to, if we want to accept that statement, and then we have to study spiritual science to know that we're equal, actually, you know, in that sense.
It's a good point. See, they're basing everything on the body. They reject the existence of the soul.
Yeah, we're going to be all different.
Then everything's relative. There's no absolutes.
Yeah, we're going to belong to this culture, belong to this group of people.
Yeah, we end up killing each other.
Exactly. That's why they're trying to make, like United Nations Prabhupada says, they tried for many years. It's a failure.
Because they're on the material level, yeah.
There's good fighting, countries are fighting against each other. Different systems, democracy, and this and that.
Yeah, good point.
You mind?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Maharaj, you mentioned even within devotees, they have anxiety or fear or like material people. So even devotees are chanting. So what is the cause? Why they have still anxiety for any unknown things? So is it because of the same relativity,
No, they
or
don't come to class, that's why. That's why they're in anxiety, even though they're chanting. They don't want to hear every day. You have to hear this every day. Our disease is forgetfulness. Right? People think, oh, I know it all. You know, chant Hare Krishna. I know it all, and they have mental problems. They're afraid. They're fearful. They get confused when there's a difficulty. They get confused, and they think, oh, maybe God doesn't exist. You know? That's why we're going to be tested, to see if we, just like you get a test and to see if you studied, right?
Yes.
We're going to be tested severely. Like Haridas Thakur, he was severely tested. He got the Acharya test. Maya Devi herself. First he was tested by the prostitute. Then second test was Maya Devi herself came and tried to make him fall down. And he turned her into a devotee also. So the test gets more and more severe the more you advance in Krishna consciousness. Because nobody can go to the spiritual world unless they're completely pure. And part of that, if you look at Prabhupada's life, he became a complete failure materially. But he was a complete success spiritually. You see. But at one point he was a complete failure. Right? He was alone. He was injured. Laying on his back in a hospital in Vrindavan. Then he's in that boat. He almost died several times. And then he almost died in New York City. This one crazy hippie tried to kill him. You know, those are severe tests. He also had a heart attack in the United States. He had to go back to India. He thought he was going to die. So he was tested very severe. That's called the Acharya test. You want to be an Acharya, you're going to be tested really hard. Right? So, but devotee has complete faith in Krishna, just like Krishna saved Prabhupada's life in the boat, in Jaladuta, twice. In the same way, he'll save us if we have faith. But our faith is going to be tested. The test, we should be happy the test comes. But everyone's afraid, oh my God, I don't want that to happen to me. No, we should be happy because that means that we're coming closer to Krishna. Whenever there's difficulty, we come closer to God as a devotee. If you're not a devotee, then you go farther away from God. But when there's difficulties, you come closer. So we should not be afraid of difficulties. We should see, this is Krishna's mercy. He's forcing me to be more serious about Krishna consciousness. So people, materialistic people can't understand it. This is like nonsense for them. They hear something like this. This is nonsense. I don't want to hear this. I want to hear how I'm going to be successful materially. I don't want to hear about I should give everything up and give it all to the temple or give it to, Krishna consciousness. I want a bigger house. I want more cars. I want more women. I want more sense gratification. I don't want to be, Hare Krishna all the time. You see? So they're condemned because they're not hearing.
Okay.
If you come and hear this day after day, you become purified. And if you avoid it, purposely avoid it, you become contaminated. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
I heard a statement like Siddhanta used to say that this material world is a place of severe, most severe, and most severe tests.
Yeah.
And the only way to go beyond this, to hear about Krishna Katha. This is the only way to pass those tests, to hear.
Yeah, definitely.
Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, severe, most severe, most severe.
Can you show me where it says that? I want to write that down as a quote.
No, I heard from Gurudev saying this, and I think he took it in one of the. Please read all the commentary about.
Well, Prabhupada says the same thing.
And you said something too.
Yeah. Because I've read it. That's why. Haribol. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You want to chant?
Okay, if I chant two times?
Whichever way you want.
Shri Guru Charana Padma. Give me the key. Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Shri Guru Charana Padma. Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Shri Guru Charana Padma. Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Shri Guru Charana Padma. Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Bandha mohi sabadana mate. Bandha mohi Savadana Mate Bandamoi Savadana Mate Bandamoi Savadana Mate Jara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Jara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Krishna Praptiya Hoite Krishna Praptiya Hoite Krishna Prapti Ho Te Krishna Prapti Ho Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Site Te Ko Riya Akya Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Site Te Ko Riya Akya Arna Koriya Mane Asha Arna Koriya Mane Arna Koriya Mane Asha Arna Koriya Mane Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise yo Tamagati Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise yo Tamagati Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Ye Prasade Pure चक्षुदाना दिलो ये जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदाना दिलो दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति जा होते अविद्या विनाश जाते Vedega Jara Charita Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu Lokanath Lokera Jivana Ha Prabhu Karo Daya Deya Mare Parachaya Ebeas Gusuk Tribhuvana Duipade Laila Sharana Laila Sharana Srila Prabhupada Bhaktita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prestaya, Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami, Iti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prestaya, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Iti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatyade Shatarine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Namine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pasyajade Satarine.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda
Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo.
Jai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Jai Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Pararajikachasta, Satara Shri Maharaj Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, the Prabhupada.
Jai.
Antakoti Vaishnava Vidi ki jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapura Dham ki jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai. Jamuna Maya ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Thai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glorious to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glorious to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vanicharya. Namaste Sister Nivali Paskati Dasatana. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to this lotus feet with great moments. By His grace, one can cross the ocean of suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from His lotus feet. Attachment to His lotus feet is perfection, fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From Him, ecstatic prema emanates. By Him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of His character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and Lord and Master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavan Ki Jai.